She's at the end of her rope. Mira stares at the empty formula can on the counter, the only food her baby will have tonight. The tiny room smells stale, half-dim light leaking through a cracked window, and in the next room, her newborn's cries pierce the silence. She rubs her eyes, exhausted. She hasn't slept, barely eaten, and the fear she feels is sharper than hunger. Desperate, she grabs her phone and, one wrong digit. She hits send. The message wasn't meant for the number she dialed. It was supposed to go to a charity. But the text lands in the hands of a man she's never met. On the other end, under city lights far away, a man named Jackson Albright receives the text. He pauses, reads the words, "I'm out of formula. My baby is crying. I don't know what to do." He hesitates, then with a gentle calm types, "Is your baby going to be okay?" A beat. You think, who is this man? Will he help? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The baby's cries echo. Mira holds her breath. Jackson's thumb hovers over the screen, uncertain. This accidental message could change everything. Mira sinks into the worn couch, baby in her arms, rocking back and forth as she tries to calm the incessant cries. Every hour feels like a week. Bills are piling up, the fridge is nearly empty, and she hasn't been able to call her mother for help in months. She's a single mom, juggling every responsibility alone, carrying a weight most people can't even imagine. The exhaustion is visible in the lines of her face, the trembling of her hands, the way she whispers soothing words to her child while silently begging for a miracle. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Jackson Albright sits in a room that could fit Myra's entire apartment twice over. The city lights stretch endlessly through the panoramic windows of his penthouse. Every surface gleams, every detail meticulously curated. Yet, behind the wealth, behind the calm exterior, he lives a life few could understand. He's private, solitary, a man who trusts almost no one. And yet, at this late hour, he's awake, scrolling through his messages, when Myra's desperate words appear. What is he doing up at this hour? Why hasn't he gone to sleep like everyone else? Jackson types slowly, almost cautiously. He's intrigued, maybe even unsettled. Mira, on the other hand, doesn't realize the gravity of her mistake. She sent the message to the wrong number, a complete stranger. One click could have brought disappointment, embarrassment, or worse. Yet, in that moment, everything hangs in the balance. She checks her phone again, reading Jackson's reply over and over. "Is your baby going to be okay?" Her heart races. Who is this man? Why is he asking? And most importantly, will he actually help? Or is this just another dead end in a life full of them? Mira rocks the baby harder, whispering, "Please, please, someone help us." And Jackson stares at the screen, thinking, maybe this is exactly the connection he didn't know he was missing. The tension lingers. A wrong number, a desperate mother, a solitary billionaire, two lives about to intersect in a way neither of them could have predicted. What will Mira do when she realizes she reached the wrong person? And more importantly, what will Jackson do next? Mira stares at the screen, her fingers trembling over the keyboard. I think I sent this to the wrong number. I'm so sorry. She types quickly, her heart pounding. She imagines the embarrassment, the judgment, the idea of a stranger judging her desperation feels almost worse than the crying of her baby. Her pride tells her to ignore it, to pretend it never happened, but the tiny, fragile life in her arms doesn't care about pride. Jackson's reply comes almost instantly, calm and deliberate. "It's okay. I want to help. No strings attached." Mira freezes. No strings attached? Those words feel foreign, almost unbelievable. She wants to laugh, or cry, or throw the phone across the room. Who just helps a stranger like that? She rereads the message, scanning for hidden conditions. A catch, a trap. Could this be a scam? Her mind races through every cautionary story she's ever heard. Her eyes flick to the clock. It's late, past midnight, and the city is quiet outside her window. The baby's soft whimpers seem louder than usual, demanding attention. And yet, for the first time in days, Mira feels a flicker of hope. She hesitates, fingers hovering over the keyboard, her pride warring with desperation. Meanwhile, Jackson sits back in his chair, eyes studying the small glow of the phone screen. He isn't thinking about fame or social media or tax write-offs. There's something different here, something in the way Myra's words reach him across the miles. In small, subtle hints, a typo, a trembling punctuation mark. The raw honesty of a mother on the edge. He senses a truth few people would ever reveal. The phone buzzes again. Are you sure your baby is warm? Did you feed her tonight? Jackson types carefully, his tone gentle, almost hesitant. Each word he sends is deliberate, measured, but caring. Mira reads it, and her chest tightens. The words feel like a lifeline, but she can't shake the lingering fear. Why would a billionaire care about someone like her? Every moment stretches. She checks for hidden clues, scanning his social media profiles quietly, piecing together what little she can find. And each discovery, the quiet generosity, the understated manners, the way he seems to live alone, adds to the tension. He's powerful, untouchable in a way most people can't imagine. Yet here he is, offering help to a complete stranger. Myra's fingers hover, trembling again. Pride tells her to refuse, to survive without handouts. But desperation whispers louder than her fear. Could she allow herself to accept help? Could she trust this man who, until minutes ago, was a complete stranger? The city hums outside, the baby's cries punctuating the silence. Mira breathes deeply and types one word. Okay. And in that simple reply, two worlds collide. A mother's hope, fragile but persistent, reaches across the chasm of wealth and solitude, touching a man who hadn't realized he needed this connection just as desperately as she did. The tension hangs thick, a wrong number, a desperate plea, and a billionaire who chooses to care. What could motivate someone like Jackson to help? And more importantly, how far will Mira let him go to ensure her baby is safe? The phone buzzes again. Mira hesitates before unlocking it, afraid of what she'll see. Then her eyes widen. $5,000. Venmo. From Jackson. Her hands shake as she taps the notification. The amount is more than she's earned in months, more than she could have dreamed of having for groceries, rent, or formula. She stares at it, disbelief mixing with fear. This could be a mistake. It could be a trap. But as she looks down at her baby, curled up and fragile in her arms, the temptation to accept it is overwhelming. Tears well in her eyes. The little one gurgles softly, oblivious to the turmoil. But Mira feels a wave of emotion crash over her. Relief, gratitude, shame, and hesitation all at once. Can she really trust this stranger? Her mind spins. She thinks about every warning she's ever heard about scams, predators, strangers offering help. Yet, something about Jackson's messages feels different. Careful, precise, human. Then a small detail catches her attention, a subtle twist that tightens her chest. He knows her baby's name. How? She never told him. She's sure of it. Her heart races. This wasn't just a random act of generosity. He knows something, and the thought of it both comforts and unsettles her. Mira stares at the screen, fingers frozen over the accept button. One decision could change everything. One click could bring relief or disappointment. The tension in her chest feels unbearable. The viewer can almost feel her heartbeat, the tiny, nervous breath she takes, the whispered prayers she mutters under her breath. She glances down at her baby again. The baby's eyes meet hers, wide and trusting, and in that instant, Mira realizes that pride must wait. Survival, love, and the simple need to keep her child fed are stronger than fear. Yet the question lingers. Why would a billionaire, a man she knows nothing about, care enough to send thousands without asking anything in return? The tension is thick. Myra's decision hangs in the balance. Does she accept the money, trusting the stranger who somehow knows her child's name? Or does she refuse, holding on to her pride while the night stretches on, empty and uncertain? For the viewer, the empathy deepens. We feel her desperation, her hope, her fear, and the small twists of fate that brought these two lives together. Every second pulses with anticipation. One click, one choice, and everything could change. Mira stares at her phone long after the first $5,000 notification. She can't bring herself to accept any more help. Not yet. Pride and fear wrestle inside her. She's used to struggling alone, and the thought of depending on someone else, especially a stranger, feels foreign, almost shameful. She rocks her baby slowly, whispering soft promises she isn't even sure she can keep, trying to convince herself that she can manage, that she doesn't need anyone else. But Jackson doesn't give up. The messages continue. Gentle, careful, almost imperceptible nudges of support. Reminders to check the baby's temperature, advice on storing formula, even tips on how to soothe her when the crying seems endless. Every message carries a weight of genuine care, a quiet patience that Mira isn't used to. She reads each one over and over, feeling an unusual mixture of gratitude and wariness. In between the messages, small glimpses of her life begin to surface. Mira remembers the fights with the baby's father, the empty promises, the nights spent alone while he disappeared into his own world. Her struggles haven't just been financial. They've been emotional, exhausting, and lonely. And yet, even in her darkest memories, she feels a fragile sense of hope slowly creeping in, a hope that someone, anyone, might see her struggles and respond with compassion rather than judgment. Jackson, on the other hand, is revealed through subtle hints. He doesn't share much, but the careful tone in his messages, the small kindnesses, and his quiet attentiveness suggest a past filled with loss, with things he's endured silently. He isn't perfect, he carries invisible scars, and the pauses between his words feel like he's treading carefully around memories he can't fully reveal. The distance between them is tangible, yet with every message, a bridge forms. Mira begins to trust, tentatively, feeling a strange sense of connection to a man she has never met. But the trust is fragile, layered with hesitation. Every word carries the possibility of betrayal, but also the possibility of relief, perhaps even comfort. And then, one evening, Mira notices something in a message that makes her pause. It's subtle, almost easy to miss, but her heart tightens. A glimpse into Jackson's world that he didn't intend to reveal, something that could change her perception of him completely. She sits there, baby in her arms, phone trembling in her hand, frozen. The screen glows softly in the dark room, reflecting her uncertainty, her hope, and the question that now dominates her thoughts. Who is this man, really, and why is he letting her in so carefully, so cautiously, into his life? The suspense hangs thick. The viewer feels her hesitation, her curiosity, her conflicted emotions, and can't help but ask themselves, if they were in Myra's place, would they trust him? And what would they do when the unexpected truth comes to light? Myra's hands shake as she scrolls through a news article Jackson had accidentally left open on his screen during one of their brief video calls. The words hit her like a punch to the chest. Jackson Albright, the reclusive billionaire, has quietly funded dozens of children's hospitals, scholarships, and emergency aid programs under the radar for years. And then, deeper into the story, a small, almost overlooked detail, a personal tragedy he's endured. He lost a child years ago, an unimaginable loss that he's carried silently, shaping his life, his work, his choices. Mira pauses, her breath catching in her throat. Everything suddenly clicks. The empathy in his messages, the care for a child he's never met, the patience and gentleness that feel almost unnatural, it all makes sense. And yet, the discovery comes with a wave of unease. How much does she really know about him? Can she trust him? Or is this a carefully constructed persona designed to manipulate? The baby stirs in her arms, crying softly, and Mira feels her heart constrict. She realizes how fragile their connection is, how delicate this thread of trust has become. One wrong move, one misstep, and it could all crumble. Her mind races. Is she reading too much into it? Or is this genuine? The uncertainty twists inside her like a knife. Hope and fear coiled tightly together. And for the viewer, the tension is unbearable. You can feel her dilemma, her vulnerability, the question of morality stretching beyond the screen. What would you do if you discovered a stranger's pain while they were helping you? Could you trust them completely, or would the fear of betrayal hold you back? The suspense thickens as Mira leans back, baby still in her arms, staring at the glowing screen. Jackson's hidden life, the layers of loss and kindness intertwined, pull her into a complicated emotional web. She wants to accept the help, to trust him, yet a part of her hesitates, unsure if the generosity comes without cost, unsure if fate has truly aligned their paths, or if she's stepping into something far more complicated than she realizes. And now, before we continue, let's check in with you. If this part is making sense, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's really watching to this point. The moment lingers. Mira breathes deeply, eyes flicking between the baby and the phone, heart pounding with anticipation, knowing that whatever happens next will change both of their lives forever. Days pass, yet the messages between Mira and Jackson never cease. Each morning, she wakes to a gentle check-in. Did the baby sleep okay last night? Or, have you had a chance to eat something today? And each night, when the world outside her apartment falls silent, the messages resume, small notes of encouragement, practical advice, and quiet reminders that she is not alone. Slowly, a fragile bond begins to form. She starts to feel a warmth she hasn't experienced in years, a sense that someone truly sees her struggle and cares. But the outside world intrudes. A friend texts her late one evening, worry in their words. Be careful, Mira. You don't know who you're really talking to online. People aren't always what they seem. Mira freezes. Doubt and fear gnaw at her. Every carefully typed message from Jackson is now filtered through suspicion. Could this connection be genuine, or is she walking blindly into danger? Jackson, for his part, shares hints of his life, small revelations that humanize the figure behind the wealth. He mentions moments of grief, hints at the child he lost, glimpses of isolation he endured even amid success. Vulnerability slips into his messages like a soft confession, exposing a side of him few have ever seen. Mira reads them carefully, absorbing each word, sensing the honesty behind the carefully measured phrasing. She sees not just a billionaire, but a man shaped by loss, a man capable of empathy, because he knows what it feels like to hurt. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, unsure whether to fully accept the help and trust him completely. Pride, fear, and hope collide within her. One wrong choice could shatter everything. Yet, every day that passes, her confidence in him grows, a quiet reassurance slowly replacing the lingering skepticism. The suspense builds. Will she reject him out of caution, clinging to independence, or will she allow herself to trust, to accept kindness without reservation? The answer hangs in the balance, fragile as the baby in her arms, delicate as the bond forming between two people whose lives were never meant to intersect, until now. And while Mira wrestles with her doubts, Jackson continues to reveal his own quiet humanity. Small details surface, a favorite childhood memory, a book that comforted him after loss, moments of quiet grief that hint at why he helps strangers without hesitation. Each revelation deepens the emotional connection, showing that even the most seemingly untouchable lives are built on experiences that are universal: love, loss, hope, and the need to care. The night stretches on. Mira sits alone in the dim light of her apartment, baby asleep in her arms, phone glowing softly. Every message feels like a lifeline, yet the tension remains, a delicate thread connecting trust and fear, hope and uncertainty. And for the viewer, the question lingers, impossible to ignore. What would you do if someone appeared in your life, offering help when you least expected it? Could you accept it, even when the risks seem so high? Just as Mira begins to feel a fragile sense of safety, shadows of the past creep back in. A message from an unknown number flashes across her screen. She freezes. The words are simple, but they carry a chill. Be careful who you trust. Her heart pounds. Could it be someone she knows? Someone watching? Her mind races. The baby stirs in her arms, and fear tightens around her chest. Then there are the subtle signs. Strange cars outside her apartment, neighbors asking odd questions, even the feeling of being followed on her brief walks to the corner store. The world she thought she was slowly gaining control over now feels unpredictable and threatening. Every instinct screams at her to protect her child, to retreat, to isolate herself once again. Jackson notices the change immediately. His messages become more vigilant, more pointed. Stay inside tonight. Lock the doors. I'll be checking in every hour. The tone is firm but caring, protective in a way that both comforts and unsettles Mira. His involvement is no longer just emotional support. It's active, deliberate, a shield against dangers she hadn't even fully recognized. The suspense escalates with each passing day. Mira wonders, constantly, what will happen if she refuses his help? Can she survive on her own? And lurking behind every message, every check-in, is the nagging thought: who is really watching them? Someone out there seems intent on testing her trust, probing the fragile sense of security she has begun to feel. Even minor interactions become tense. A friendly neighbor who stops to chat suddenly feels like an interrogation. A shadow of her past ex-boyfriend lingers in her memory, and every notification on her phone sends a jolt of anxiety through her body. The small, subtle threats compound, leaving Mira exhausted but alert. And Jackson, despite his wealth and power, is not immune to the tension. He checks in obsessively, tracks the small details she shares, and begins to piece together patterns that suggest someone is trying to manipulate or intimidate her. Yet, even with all his resources, the uncertainty gnaws at both of them. What if they misjudge the danger? What if someone crosses the line? For the viewer, the questions multiply. Will Myra's baby remain safe? Can she trust Jackson fully? Or is this danger greater than they realize? And in the background, a constant tension hums. Who is really watching, waiting, or planning something unseen? Every message, every glance, every decision carries weight. One false step could unravel the fragile thread holding their lives together. The tension that had been building for weeks finally reaches its breaking point. Mira sits in her dim apartment, baby in her arms, heart pounding, when Jackson's final message arrives. But this time, it's different. There's no hesitation, no cautious phrasing. He reveals everything. The loss he endured years ago, the child he could never save, and how that pain shaped every decision he's made since. His hidden philanthropy, the quiet, deliberate way he's helped children in need, the empathy that drew him to her in the first place. It all becomes clear. Mira reads each word, tears streaming down her cheeks. The magnitude of his kindness, the depth of his loss, and the deliberate care he's shown overwhelms her. She realizes that this man, a stranger turned guardian, has offered something far beyond money: hope, security, and the promise of safety for her baby. For the first time in weeks, she allows herself to breathe, to trust fully, to accept help without fear or hesitation. The minor threats, the shadowy warnings, the sleepless nights, they now feel distant, held at bay by Jackson's protective presence. Mira finally feels a sense of security she never imagined possible. She begins to plan her next steps, not out of desperation, but from hope. She knows that she and her baby are no longer alone, that there is someone who genuinely cares, and that even in a world that often feels indifferent, kindness can be found. As the night settles, the baby sleeps peacefully, and Myra's eyes meet Jackson's final message one last time. A reminder that connection, empathy, and courage can change lives. The viewer feels it too. The emotional release, the gratitude, the fragile sense of hope restored. The moral is clear. Even in despair, acts of courage, resilience, and kindness can create profound, lasting impact. And yet, just before the story closes, a question lingers. What do you think really happened that night? Was justice served? The suspense leaves room for reflection, for conversation, and for the audience to consider how they would act in the face of such desperation and unexpected kindness. If this story hit you like it did us, hit that like button. It helps us reach more people. And subscribe if you want more gripping stories every day. Mira holds her baby close, feeling the first real sense of hope in months, while Jackson, far away in his penthouse, finally allows himself a quiet smile. Two lives, once strangers, forever changed by chance, trust, and a single act of compassion.